The roar started as a low rumble, quickly escalating into a thunderous wave. It's not of water, but of something thick, dark, and syrupy, rising 15 feet high, hurtling through Boston streets at 35 miles per hour. In mere moments, it buckled steel girders, tore apart buildings, and swept away everything in its path. Imagine the unimaginable. An entire neighborhood drowned in a deadly, sweet tsunami, all on a deceptively warm January afternoon. Welcome, everyone. Today, we're diving deep into one of history's most bizarre and tragically overlooked disasters. The Great Molasses Flood, Boston's deadly wave of syrup. And I promise you, by the end of this tale, you will never think of industrial safety, or even a simple sweet treat the same way again. We unearth incredible, forgotten stories like this every single week. So if you don't want to miss the next one, make sure you're subscribed and join our community of historical explorers. All right, let's step back to January 15th, 1919, the quiet north end of Boston, just moments before the world turned upside down. All right, let's step back to January 15th, 1919, the quiet north end of Boston, just moments before the world turned upside down. Imagine, if you will, a city teetering on the edge of a new era. Boston in 1919 was a fascinating, vibrant tapestry of old-world charm and burgeoning modernity. A place where history clung to cobblestone streets. Even as the hum of industry and the promise of progress reshaped its skyline. The Great War had just ended a few months prior, and the city, like the nation, was exhaling a collective sigh of relief, mingled with a profound sense of exhaustion and uncertainty. The young men who had marched off to distant battlefields were now slowly trickling home, bearing the invisible scars of conflict, stepping back into a world that felt both familiar and irrevocably changed. Their return brought a wave of bittersweet joy, parades, and tearful reunions. But also, the daunting task of reintegrating into a society grappling with its own post-war identity. This wasn't merely a city, it was a living, breathing organism, constantly in flux. Horse-drawn carts still rattled over uneven pavement, competing for space with the growing number of automobiles, their engines a new, exciting roar in the urban symphony. Electric streetlights cast their glow over gas lamps, and the telephone, once a novelty, was rapidly becoming an indispensable tool, off-commerce and connection. Boston was an intellectual powerhouse, its universities drawing minds from across the globe, but it was also a gritty, working-class town. Its prosperity built on the sweat and toil of its diverse population. At its heart, Boston was a port city, and in 1919, its waterfront was the very pulse of its economic lifeblood. Tall-masted schooners, their sails furled, mingled with the more modern, steam-powered cargo ships that had ferried supplies across the Atlantic during the war. The air near the docks was a rich, complex perfume, the salty temps of the sea, the rich aroma of coffee beans spilling from burlap sacks, the sharp scent of timber, and the earthy smell of coal smoke curling from countless chimneys. The rhythmic clang of winches, the shouting of longshoremen in a dozen different languages. The mournful blast of a ship's horn echoing across the harbor. These were the constant soundtracks of Boston's commercial heart. Goods of every conceivable kind flowed in and out of the city, transforming it into a vital hub of trade and industry for the entire New England region. This ceaseless flow of commerce not only fueled the city's economy, but also defined the daily rhythms and the very character of its working-class neighborhoods. And of all these neighborhoods, none was quite as vivid, as densely packed, or as utterly essential to Boston's identity as the North End. This was a place with history etched into every brick, a place that had been a vital part of Boston since its earliest colonial days. By 1919, however, its character had been utterly transformed. It was no longer the exclusive domain of Yankee merchants or revolutionary patriots. Instead, the North End had become the vibrant, beating heart of Boston's Italian-American community. Imagine stepping into this district. The narrow, winding streets, some barely wide enough for 2 wagons to pass, were a riot of color, sound, and life. Tenement buildings, 5 or 6 stories high, stood shoulder to shoulder, their brick facades softened by time and the clinging tendrils of ivy. Laundry lines, strung precariously between windows, crisscrossed the alleys like intricate spiderwebs. Fluttering with the day's wash, a patchwork flag of domesticity, the sounds were a constant, joyful cacophony. the high-pitched, chatter-off children playing stickball in the street. Their laughter mingling with the melodic rise and fall of Italian dialects spoken from open windows. The booming baritone of a vendor hawking fresh fish, the distant peal of church bells calling the faithful to worship. The air itself was thick with the rich, aromatic tapestry of Italian cooking. The sharp, tangy scent of simmering tomato sauce mingled with the robust fragrance of garlic and oregano. The sweet perfume of baking bread wafted from local bakeries, and the earthy notes of roasting peppers spilled from open doorways. Small, family-owned shops lined every street, a butcher proudly displaying his cuts, a baker offering warm loaves dusted with flour, a grocer's stall overflowing with vibrant fruits and vegetables, each a testament to the bounty of the land and the ingenuity of its people. These were not merely places of commerce, were extensions of home, where news was exchanged, friendships forged, and the sense of community strengthened with every transaction. Life in the North End was lived on the streets, in the piazzas, and within the tightly knit embrace of family and neighborhood. Generations often lived under one roof or in close proximity, fostering a powerful sense of loyalty and mutual support. For many, this was a fresh start, a new chapter written on American soil, but one that held fast to the traditions and heritage of the old country. Immigrants had flocked to Boston's shores, particularly from southern Italy, seeking economic opportunity and an escape from hardship. They brought with them a profound work ethic, a deep cultural pride, and an unshakable determination to build better lives for themselves and their children. This community was, for the most part, a working-class community. Men found employment on the docks, loading and unloading cargo, or in the city's various factories and workshops. Women often worked in garment factories, or took in laundry and sewing, contributing vital income to the household. Children, too, contributed, often running errands, helping in family businesses, or selling newspapers on street corners. It was a life of hard work, but also one imbued with a vibrant social fabric. Lively festivals, boisterous family gatherings, the comforting ritual of Sunday Mass at one of the neighborhood's beautiful churches. These were people who had built their lives, brick by careful brick, in the shadow of American promise, often against considerable odds. They were survivors, dreamers, and the very backbone of Boston's industrious spirit. Yet, beneath this bustling surface, Boston in 1919 was also grappling with deeper currents of change and tension. The devastating Spanish flu pandemic, which had swept across the globe in 1918, had left its indelible mark, taking a heavy toll on the city's population, particularly in densely populated areas like the North End. While the worst of the pandemic had passed by January 1919, a lingering sense of vulnerability and loss still permeated the atmosphere. People had witnessed unimaginable suffering, and the city was still in the slow process of healing, physically and emotionally. The memory of the masks, the empty streets, and the constant tolling of funeral bells was fresh in many minds, adding a layer of subdued solemnity to the otherwise vibrant city. Furthermore, the post-war economic landscape was complex. While some industries boomed, others faced uncertainty. Inflation was a growing concern, eroding the purchasing power of working families. This era was also marked by significant labor unrest across the nation, as workers demanded better wages, safer conditions, and a greater share of the profits they helped create. Though Boston was not immune to these tensions, the immediate aftermath of the war brought a brief lull in major strikes, as the city focused on recovery and the return to normalcy. Still, the seeds of future industrial strife were being sown, adding to the sense that this was a pivotal moment in American history, a cusp between an old order and a new, undefined future. And then there was the looming shadow of Prohibition. The Volstead Act, which would usher in a nationwide ban on the production and sale of alcoholic beverages, was just months away from passage. Though the movement towards temperance had been gaining considerable momentum for years, for communities like the North End, where wine with meals and local social clubs were integral to cultural and daily life, the prospect of prohibition was met with a mixture of defiance, apprehension, and even a degree of quiet planning for how to navigate the impending changes. It was another sign that the familiar world was rapidly shifting, pushing against long-held traditions. In the midst of all this, standing tall, and somewhat incongruously amidst the old brick buildings and narrow lanes of the North End, was the massive steel tank belonging to the Purity Distilling Company. It was an industrial behemoth. A colossal cylinder of metal rising approximately 50 feet into the air, with a diameter of about 90 feet. Its dark, imposing silhouette dominated the landscape along Commercial Street, just a stone's throw from the waterfront. To the residents of the North End, particularly those who lived in its immediate vicinity, the tank was simply a part of the everyday scenery. It had been there since 1915, a silent, ever-present sentinel, a testamento, the industrial might of the city. Children playing in the streets might have glanced at its immense form without a second thought. Women hanging laundry might have seen its dark curve against the sky as they went about their chores. Men walking to work in the docks or to the nearby elevated train station would have passed by it, their minds occupied with the day's tasks, not the potential contained within its riveted steel plates. The tank itself was a monument to molasses, surprisingly versatile and valuable commodity in 1919. Molasses, a thick, dark syrup, was a byproduct of sugar refining. But its uses were manifold. It wasn't just for sweetening baked goods or making rum. In industrial quantities like this, it was a crucial ingredient in the production of industrial alcohol, which in turn was used to make everything from munitions and solvents to commercial yeast and even some medicines. With World War I recently concluded, demand for such industrial products had been incredibly high. Companies like Purity Distilling had been working at full capacity to meet those needs. The tank was therefore seen as a symbol of prosperity, of progress, of Boston's role in the global economy. It was a utilitarian structure, undeniably immense, but seemingly benign. It was, after all, just molasses. The Purity Distilling Company had chosen this location for its massive storage tank for practical reasons. Its proximity to the waterfront allowed for easy transfer of molasses directly from ships arriving in Boston Harbor. Pipelines ran from the docks, efficiently pumping the viscous liquid into the giant container. From there, it would later be transferred by railcar to the company's distillery in Cambridge, where it would be processed. It was a well-oiled, efficient system designed for high-volume operation, a testament to the era's engineering ambitions. On that unseasonably warm January morning, the air was mild, almost spring-like, a peculiar warmth from midwinter in Boston. A light rain had fallen overnight, leaving the cobblestones slick and gleaming in the weak morning light. The usual hustle and bustle of the North End was already in full swing. Streetcars clanged their way along the tracks. Children were making their way to school, their satchels swinging, and the pungent aroma of brewing coffee mingled with the ever-present sense of the harbor and the distinctive, like a slightly sweet smell that always seemed to hover around the giant molasses tank. It was a smell that had become so familiar, so much a part of the background, that most residents barely registered it anymore. It was just the smell of their neighborhood, the smell of commerce, the smell of life in the North End. No one looked at that tank with fear or trepidation. It was a fixture, as much a part of the landscape as the steeple of St. Stephen's Church, or the brick tenements themselves. It held a benign, sweet substance, not a volatile chemical, not a dangerous explosive. It was simply a container, a vessel designed to hold the thick, dark liquid that fueled part of Boston's industry. The idea that this inanimate object, this symbol of progress, could unleash unimaginable horror upon their lives, transforming their bustling, vibrant community into a scene of unspeakable devastation was utterly beyond the realm of comprehension. It was a morning like any other, a Tuesday that promised nothing more than the ordinary rhythm of daily life. The residents of the North End went about their business, unaware that beneath the seemingly placid surface of that colossal tank, a silent, deadly pressure was building, poised to shatter their world in a way no one could have ever predicted. The stage was set, the unwitting actors were in place, and the curtain was about to rise on one of the most bizarre and tragic chapters in Boston's storied history. That towering structure, that colossal cylinder dominating the waterfront, was more than just a storage facility. It was a testament to the ambitions of the Purity Distilling Company, and, as we would tragically come to learn, a monument to corporate short-sightedness and negligence. To the casual observer, it was an impressive feat of engineering for its time, standing 50 feet high with a diameter of 90 feet. capable of holding a staggering 2.3 million gallons of molasses. Imagine that volume for a moment. Enough to fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool more than 8 times over.
Ow.
It was a dark, imposing presence, a silent sentinel that had watched over the bustling North End for over 4 years. But beneath that seemingly robust exterior, a dark secret festered. A silent conspiracy of shoddy workmanship and corner-cutting that would ultimately prove fatal. The story of the molasses tank, you see, is not just about its catastrophic failure, but about the insidious additions that led to it. It begins, as so many stories do, with the insatiable demands of industry and the relentless pursuit of profit. The Purity Distilling Company, a subsidiary of the United States Industrial Alcohol Company, WASA, major player in the rapidly expanding industrial alcohol market. This was the era of World War I, and the demand for ethanol, used in everything from munitions and solvents to medicinal supplies, was skyrocketing. Molasses, a byproduct of sugar refining, was the primary raw material for producing this crucial alcohol. To meet this demand, Purity Distilling needed immense storage capacity. A place to hold the vast quantities of thick, dark syrup arriving by tanker ships from the Caribbean, for it could process at their distillery in Cambridge.